Fantasy Football Warriors. Week 2, start sit,
Back it again.
back at it again. Here we go. So, the Tank Sinatra, Eddie Bravo, bringing you your start sits for week 2. And with that, let's just get to it. Let's roll right in.
All right.
Here we go.
Fuck it.
All right, first game here. Bills at Dolphins.
Thursday night football. Short week. Sometimes
Short
that
week.
breeds a little worse game environment. But,
You know how I feel about Thursday night games.
I do.
Let me just tell you briefly, real quick. Thursday night games, I do not, if I don't have to, I do not play anyone. I do not play anyone. I don't line anyone up on a Thursday. Not saying that you don't or shouldn't, or I just have this weird luck with Thursday night games where my players just crap the bed on Thursday nights, and I have the track record to prove it. I have the witness here to prove
Yeah.
it, and I don't like Thursday night games. However, must starts here like Josh Allen. It doesn't matter the day, doesn't matter the matchup. You're starting Josh Allen. We're not gonna beat a dead horse on the must starts, right?
Oh, yeah. Maybe some of you are surprised to see Dalton Kincaid in the must-starts, but you need to understand he was out there a ton. The usage is there. But when you watch the game, there was plays where he literally had 4 Cardinals defenders covering him. So clearly the Cardinals went into that game and just said anyone but Dalton Kincaid. That's not going to happen every game. And obviously it didn't work because they still lost. So Dalton Kincaid, I think brighter days are ahead. You are still starting him. I think he bounces back. We'll be okay. I would sit Curtis Samuel. His usage wasn't great. Keon Coleman and Khalil Shakir had a little bit better things going on, specifically Keon Coleman. I would maybe start them in this game just because when you look at the track record of Josh Allen playing the Miami Dolphins, he's never thrown for under 300 yards. Literally not once. So odds are Josh Allen probably is going to be pretty good, and there should be plenty of yards to go around.
Yeah.
I hope, for my fantasy Valkyrie's sake, that most of it goes to Kincaid, but I think because of that ceiling of these games are typically shootouts between these two, you can potentially start Coleman and Shakir if you have to this early in the season. I'm not sure if you do, but everyone's situations are different. Must starts for the Dolphins: Tyreek Hill, Devon Achane, and Jalen Waddle. Obviously, pay attention to the injury status of Achane. He's beat up.
Yep.
Mostert got declared out already, and because of that, either Jeff Wilson or Jalen Wright, can't really say who it's going to be.
I lean Jeff Wilson
just because he's the one that got the start.
Familiarity and all of that. So.
Long term over the season, I prefer to roster Jalen Wright. But I think for this game, if you're starting one of them, Jeff Wilson's probably the safer bet. And then is Tua, just because neither one of these defenses last week gave up a ton through the air. And Tua's not someone who picks up much on the ground. So it could be a little bit of a worse game. But obviously, because of the environment with the Bills, the shootout potential is there, and there's the possibility that he throws for more. But neither one of these defenses were vulnerable in the passing games last week. However, they were pretty vulnerable on the ground. They were both bottom 8 in yards per carry allowed. The Bills, 4.96 yards per carry allowed. Dolphins, 4.92. So that kind of leans into what we expect out of a Thursday game on a short week.
Yeah.
Is the offenses might be a little bit behind. You want to run the rock. That's just kind of how Thursday games often play out. So because it is a good running spot, I would expect all these running backs in the game, James Cook, Devon Achane, et cetera, to have strong weeks. They should put up good performances. I would be getting them in your lineup, and that's what makes Jeff Wilson or Jalen Wright both good pieces. It's a great running game and a great spot.
Especially when the coach speak isn't promising for Achane either. Like, Mike McDaniels didn't really give anything promising for Achane other than we'll see how it plays out. I don't know. It doesn't sound very promising to me. He might still play, but if Jeff Wilson is out there, get him in your lineup and just be expecting that type of game on Thursday, right? There's less preparation. going into a Thursday game, you have that accelerated practice, shorter training time, shorter preparation time. Thursday nights they just pan out that way throughout the week. So, um, yeah, I don't think there's much else to cover here.
Rolling into Sunday morning, Saints at Cowboys. Now, both of these defenses, obviously, in week one, looked like the most dominant defenses in the league. The Browns did nothing. The Panthers did nothing. But you have to wonder how much of that in this first week was the QBs at play. Bryce Young and Deshaun Watson are both bums, and so it's hard to say how dominant either one of these defenses are until they go up against the better quarterbacks. So we'll see how the Cowboys defense is obviously good, so there's less question marks there, and the Saints defense has always been good too. But to that extreme of shutting out a team entirely, we'll see how both of these defenses perform. The Saints gave up the fewest yards per carries to running backs across the league last week, so wouldn't expect Zeke or Rico Dowdle to be strong plays here.
Not at all.
I would be sitting them. The backfield is split between them very evenly.
That
So
split backfield is what worries me. Elliott only had 4 more snaps over Dowdle and 3 more touches. And then going up against a tough run defense like that.
Yeah,
I don't
know if there'll be enough volume to overcome it for either one of them. So I would sit them.
Either one of them.
The Saints were actually more vulnerable through the air, however, with a 12.38 yards per reception. So there is the potential that CeeDee Lamb has a strong week here. Even Brandon Cooks are both fine plays, I think. Brandon Cooks is obviously a lower floor than CeeDee Lamb, but CeeDee Lamb looks to probably get back on track this week. They were more vulnerable through the air, and I think the Cowboys capitalize on that.
Yeah, and I think they move him around enough so he's not constantly seeing Marshawn Lattimore, so that'll help him.
The Cowboys, on the other hand, were more vulnerable on the ground with a 4.83 yards per carry given up to backs. So that makes Alvin Kamara a good bet. Obviously, he's going to get his receptions. He should be fine on the ground. You're starting Alvin Kamara.
Yeah, I think he week one, just for where we're at, week one. I was pretty impressed with Kamara.
Some of it was just because of the matchup.
Well.
If you look at some of the advanced metrics, he was pretty bad. Like when you're talking about like yards over expectation and some of those advanced efficiency metrics, it wasn't great. But
fantasy points wise, he got it done for your team if you needed him to, and if you started him.
I think Olave should bounce back this week. Obviously, what happened last week was the Panthers were literally no competition, and they were running for most of the game. So it was just not a game script conducive to success for Olave. And obviously
I have Olave on my team.
Saints are going to have to pass to keep up in this game, obviously. So I would expect both Olave and Rashid Shaheed to be strong starts for you. Both have the ability to go out there and get you strong weeks. The usage and, use of motion and play action and all those things that create more fantasy points and a more viable offense were there with Clint Kubiak, which is what we were hoping. So I think we should be looking forward to what Olave can do in a better system. I think last week was just not a game script that was okay for him. Obviously, it's a tougher matchup because the Cowboys do have a good defense, but I think Olave could be in a position to bounce back.
Derek Carr, what would you say to those that saw his performance week one and kind of want to chase the points?
It's Derek Carr, and it was the Panthers.
Good advice. It is Derek Carr, and it was the Panthers. So, he had a good week one, but just...
And it is week one. If you don't have a better option, you lost already. That's all I got to say. Moving on. Next game, Buccaneers and Lions. I'm excited for this game, personally.
Mm-hmm.
Both these teams have plenty of fantasy goodness to go around.
Yeah, I see fireworks in this one.
It could be. I will say the Lions defense played pretty well against the Rams, so there is that concern, but not well enough that you think there's no way this game can explode.
They still gave up to the wideouts.
Gave up to Cooper Kupp.
Well,
specifically.
Yeah, I guess. But now you got to take on Evans and Godwin.
Yeah. But if you saw our waiver wire video, you saw we had both Jared Goff and Baker Mayfield as our streaming options. This is why this is a good matchup for both of them. This is a game that could have a lot of points scored. So you want to target those matchups because more points scored means more plays, means more touchdowns go around. a higher likelihood that players hit. So our must starts on the Bucks are Chris Godwin and Mike Evans. Obviously, you are starting those guys every week. Chris Godwin was great. Mike Evans was great. Baker Mayfield was great.
Baker Mayfield.
You love to
He
see it.
he really showed out this week 1. He really played well. I was kind of happy to see it. I was like, all right, Baker, go get it, man. And it's such a I I hate to say it, but it's such a Cleveland Browns like luck.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
He was
For
mad,
Mayfield,
right?
yeah,
And then they trade him away and he's just
and
ascended.
then he just starts like ascending, getting better. It's
Now, if
it's
you
funny
recall,
to me. I don't know.
a couple of years ago when they traded or make Baker Mayfield go away, I remember saying that I didn't think it was a good idea because I think the staff and the offense they ran over there was more at fault for Baker Mayfield not ever doing anything, because it's not like they asked him to have the keys to this offense and run an offense. They were just like decided they were going to be this super run heavy team. It wasn't like Baker Mayfield was ever the reason they lost. I don't know. I kind of felt like, I don't know, Baker Mayfield was the scapegoat for more at fault for the Browns personally. I said that a few years ago. I don't know if you remember that when he first got traded to the Panthers or signed with the Panthers. I don't remember which one.
Yeah.
And I mean, with
I
the
do
Bucks,
remember that.
it's looked like I was right.
That's looked like it. Yeah,
So-
they were the ones holding him back, and now he's in a better environment. Last year you already saw he was better than when he was with the Browns. This year he's even better than last year so far, week 1. But it's just a very Cleveland Browns thing. But the reason I was saying about Godwin and Evans here is in week 1, right? The Lions allowed the 4th most points to the slot. That's Godwin, obviously.
Yep.
And they allowed the 7th most points to the perimeter, even if it was just Cooper Kupp. Like, somehow, they allowed that, right? So, I don't know. I see this one has some shootout potential to me.
Yeah,
I'm
and they've
definitely looking forward to it.
They have to attack them through the passing game because the Lions gave up the 8th fewest yards per carry at 3.6 to opposing backs last week.
There you go.
Only 4 total receiving yards to the running backs as well. So it wasn't like there was a ton of receiving usage for the running backs that worked out. And the second lowest explosive rush rate for the running backs as well against the Rams. So the Lions' defensive front and running game, they played well. So
Yep.
with Rachaad White being as bad as he is, that's why he's in the meh here. I'm sure that's probably surprising that he's not a must start or a strong start. It's
He
just
sure isn't.
this was my
against
concern.
that.
This is why I didn't draft him.
Not
He's
against the Lions.
not good at running the football, and they've got 2 stout receivers, right? So, and Bucky Irving looked
And
good.
I was just about to
If
say,
he continues
Bucky
to
Irving,
ascend, man, look, I would be worried about Rachaad White. I think I said that in the waiver wire video, but I would be worried this week. You're probably still starting him because, 1, where you drafted him, but 2, you're going to have to hope that he racks enough receptions and that they don't give Bucky Irving more work, that it just kind of balances out. But this is definitely a game where I would expect Rachaad White to underperform and just not have that great of a week. So just be wary of that. Another reason why this game could be a shootout, another reason why Baker Mayfield is a strong start, is because I don't think they're going to have a running game to rely on in this game. So more passing means more points for the receivers and the quarterbacks. On the Lions side of things, obviously you're starting Amon-Ra, Jimmy
always
Gibbs,
starting
and Sam
Sun
Laporta.
guy, period.
Strong starts, Jared Goff, as we talked about. Jameson Williams and David Montgomery are also in our strong starts.
Jameson Williams.
Good for him. I'll say it. I'll be the first. If you watched our videos, you know that I wasn't much of a believer. But that doesn't mean I was preying on his downfall or wanting him to fail. That is not the case. I was just making an evaluation. And I mean, for the first couple of seasons, it was the correct evaluation. And you could even hear it from the coaches. Every time Dan Campbell would talk about him, it was, oh, he's still behind. He's not where we need him to be, blah, 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 blah. And this offseason, things changed. They were talking him up, right? And you could see it even on his little interview after the game.
Yes.
Like, he just seemed like a
completely
different person. Grateful, happy, a complete 180 from what I saw from him early in his career, and you'd love to see it.
Yep.
And you got to remember that these are kids coming into the NFL. They grow as people. At least you hope they grow as people. At Tyreek Hill. Sorry. That guy, man. So
Ah,
good for Jamison Williams. He's a strong start this week. He could go out there and post another strong line. Don't be worried about Amon Ra if you're an Amon Ra owner. He'll be fine.
yep, he'll be fine.
Last week was, I don't know what was going on there, but offenses are generally behind this early. They'll get them
Yeah,
going.
they're
They
getting
have to
into
get them
their
going.
flow. Like we said, week one, things are gonna he'll be fine. Amon Ra, he'll be fine. So,
I will say about David Montgomery, only a strong start and not like a must start just because the backfield shares were in favor of Jahmyr Gibbs for most of the game. It was that overtime, that single overtime drive that was almost, the majority of David Montgomery's yardage. He ran every single one of those, got the touchdown. Like, that's a huge reason why the carries looked that way for Montgomery, and a huge part of his performance was that. Without the OT, you're still got a good game, but it's not
yeah,
like the touchdown and the how many yards he had. So,
yeah. Jahmyr Gibbs your starter here if you need to start him. Obviously, you should be starting him where you drafted him. Montgomery's still a fine flex.
yeah. Colts Packers.
Colts Packers. Anthony Richardson.
Valkyrie.
Valkyrie. Let's go, baby.
So, you're starting Anthony Richardson, obviously. You're starting Jonathan Taylor.
Yes, sir.
Michael Pittman's only a strong start until we see Richardson kind of take a step forward as a passer. Only 9 completions in that first game isn't what you want to see.
No,
so
it is not. Not at all.
we hope he continues to ascend. I have faith in Shane Steichen and the offensive staff that they can get him going and developing over the season. But until we see that, it's hard for me to recommend Michael Pittman as anything
Yeah.
other than like a mid-range wide receiver too. So
I
you're
definitely
probably
would.
starting him, but understand that it's until we see him develop as a passer a little bit more, the floor is going to be low. I would sit Alec Pierce and A.D. Mitchell in this game. Obviously, A.D. Mitchell didn't really do much. Alec Pierce had a good week, but that was off of one crazy-ass reception, so it's hard to count on that every week. I would shy away. I would lean sitting everyone in this game except for Josh Jacobs, just because unless Jordan Love is playing, I don't think he's going to play, but they haven't made an official determination on that. If Jordan Love isn't playing, I would say just start Josh Jacobs and then avoid everyone else.
Yeah,
It's actually a good game.
That was my point is, nothing against the wideouts, but
Malik Willis isn't going to sustain.
Willis is one of, if not the least accurate quarterbacks in the league right now.
Granted, he hasn't given much time to do much of anything, but still,
However,
that is the reason why he hasn't, right?
however,
So anyway, with Jacobs, it's a really good matchup. The Colts allowed 5.2 yards per carry and a 16 or a 15% explosive rush rate, which was top of the NFL. I think it was 9th. So Jacobs is in for a good game here. Obviously, you saw what Joe Mixon did last week. Josh Jacobs could go out there and have a very similar week, especially if Jordan Love isn't playing. They're going to lean on the run game, right? Because you don't want Malik Willis going out there and throwing 20, 30 times, right? So
yeah.
Josh Jacobs was in a really good spot this week. So I would sit all the Packers receivers, as I said.
Yeah, and
Unless
it's not
Jordan
because
was
they're
playing.
not in a good spot. The wide receivers are, for the most part, they're in a conducive environment for fantasy points. It's just the Love downgrade, right? So, could they go out there and have themselves a good enough week if you needed to start them, whether it's Dubs, Watson, or Wicks? Sure, but I think Jaden Reed tangling in the slot with Kenny Moore, probably want to maybe stay away from that. But like you said, probably all the wideouts are probably not anyone you want to play.
Absolutely.
Jets Titans.
Gross.
Jets. No, not so much. Aaron Rodgers looking at the the meme of him looking
Oh,
like something went wrong in the office. I love that meme. It's
Jimbo.
So funny. Yep. So Brees Hall, of course, a start, right? Garrett Wilson, of course, a start. Okay, don't need to beat that up much, but Alan Lazard had himself a pretty
yeah, he did.
good game here. Do you feel like it's sustainable?
I think they're void of any
Obviously,
talent outside of
Lazard
Wilson.
was in Green Bay.
He's got the connection, right?
He's got the connection.
Mike Williams is never been a great wide receiver. People only think that because he had that one good season because Justin Herbert's awesome, and that's about it, right? And then he's done nothing since, and Mike Williams is not great. He's coming off an ACL tear. Literally, it is Alan Lazard behind Garrett Wilson, and Alan Lazard, while isn't an amazing wide receiver, he's a quality wide receiver. So I think we missed him in our waiver wire video, to be honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
But if he's on your wire, I would add him. I think.
I feel like when I think of Lazard, right, I don't think of anyone that necessarily wows me in any way, but when I think of him, I think of a reliable wide receiver.
Yeah,
in a sense.
I could see that. I would sit Aaron Rodgers just because the Titans did have a fairly good week. Now you wonder how much are the Titans' defense good or the Bears' offense atrocious, right? So we'll know this week. Not that the Jets had some crazy showing, but I think they'll gel as the season goes on. That was literally the first game that Aaron Rodgers has played as a Jet. Like, let's just temper the expectations. I think things will get better. I think they had a drive there or two where they showed what they're capable, and they just got to...
That first one?
Yeah. Or I think it was the second drive.
Was it second?
Yeah. The scoring drive or whatever. I think Breece Hall scored the touchdown. So I think they'll get better as the season went on. And for Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall, not to hash it too much, I know you're starting them, but the touch shares for both of those guys were through the roof.
Yes.
It was just what you wanted to see.
What you want, right.
I think Garrett Wilson had a 38% target share, and Breece Hall had a 21% target share. Breece Hall had a crazy amount of the carries. Like, those guys are just set it and forget it starters. There will be better days ahead for Garrett Wilson, I think. So just keep starting them. On the Titans sides of things, I have Tony Pollard as a must start. He clearly is the lead back there. He had a 62% rush share in week 1. Like,
I drafted Tajay Spears.
Sorry to hear.
Sad day.
I will say on a per touch basis, they were both really good. So
yeah,
it could have the chance to even out as the season goes on. But until we see that, Tony Pollard's a starter.
Mm-hmm.
I would lean to sit Tajay Spears unless you have to. Jets gave up a 4.74 yards per carry on the week last week and a 15.8% explosive rush rate. Both were like top of the league, top 10-ish in the league. So it's a pretty good spot for Tony Pollard here. Obviously, Jordan Mason just torched them on Monday night. So Tony Pollard is in a good position to boom this week. I would be trying to get him into your lineups. Terrible spot for the wide receivers, however. Yeah. Levis struggled last week mightily, and it's a bad matchup on top of it. So it's just,
you don't want none of that smoke.
Please sit Ridley. Please sit Hopkins.
Please do.
And obviously don't play Will Levis, right?
Yeah. Jets, since last year, have given up the fewest points from 2 wide receivers, and walking into 2024 week 1, nothing's changed.
Yeah.
So you don't want none of that smoke.
49ers Vikings. This should be a good game. Obviously, the Vikings looked good last week, both offensively and defensively, but you have to wonder how much of that was the Giants and how much was them, right? We'll see this week. So it's bad. It's bad. So it's hard to trust that their defense is actually going to be that good, even though when you look at when you're looking at all these numbers that you're looking at for defensive efficiency and such, they look good. But like I said, I'm taking that with a grain of salt, and I'm not going to project that onto here. So you are starting Jordan Mason, you're starting Deebo Samuel, and you're starting George Kittle. I would say Brandon Ayuk is just a strong start right now until he gets up to game speed. He didn't play like all of training camp. That's valuable time missed. So until he gets going, he's just not a must start right now. If you've got better options, I would start him over Brandon Ayuk. Just a meh for Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy is pretty much always a meh. The offense is just so efficient. They run so much that Brock Purdy is rarely in a position to boom. And I don't think the Vikings are going to push the needle here, where the 49ers are going to have to go out there and throw a ton. So just understand that. And obviously this early in the season, you probably got better options. Brock Purdy, Justin Jefferson, you're always starting. A little bit of a quieter week than we would have expected, but that had a lot to do with how bad the Giants were. At a certain point, they had no reason to throw anymore. And there goes Justin Jefferson, game scripted out of the game.
Justin Jefferson is... If there's any whiteout in the league that's whatever proof you want to call it, game proof, quarterback proof, it's probably Justin Jefferson.
Yep. Phenomenal wide receiver. You know that already. You're starting him. And I wouldn't expect that to happen at all the rest of the season, where the Vikings are up 38-6. Because the Vikings defense, historically, when you look at the whole body of last season, was very poor in the passing department. So that just breeds high passing environments, and I think that continues. So Justin Jefferson's fine. Aaron Jones looked good, had a good day.
He did.
Obviously, the Giants' defense did not.
I don't know why I was surprised, but I was a little bit surprised. Just because, I don't know. I guess in a way I got kind of caught up in the, Aaron Jones misses games, kind of he's getting older, kind of talk, but I was kind of surprised. Good for him.
So yeah, I think if you drafted Aaron Jones, you're starting him in pretty much every matchup. He should get enough work here in both the receiving and the running game to deliver a good day. Obviously, the 49ers are a good defense, so it's not going to be... He's not going to blow you away with efficiency.
Your expectations, for sure.
So I would sit Sam Darnold and Jordan Addison in this game just because it is a tough defense. I'm not expecting fireworks out of this Vikings. Not enough for Sam Darnold to be viable.
Yeah.
Justin Jefferson will be fine, but
I think Deebo Samuel is a must start until McCaffrey gets back.
Maybe, but at the same time, no. He did have 8 attempts for 23 yards and a touchdown.
8 rushes.
But at the same time...
Which is something you weren't seeing, really, once McCaffrey came to the Niners, right? Yeah. And came, that dropped immensely or almost just completely disappeared.
Yep. Yeah, and I do get that, but I think after seeing what Jordan Mason can do, I don't think they're going to be feeling as compelled to need to get Deebo Samuel those 8 attempts.
Think so?
I would be interested to see when those 8 rushes came in, if the bulk of them were at the beginning of the game. But I think Jordan Mason proved himself enough to carry the workload and be good enough with it.
For sure.
That I don't think they're going to need to continue to get Deebo those snaps.
Yeah, I think for me it's more of a, obviously Jordan Mason's not used to that type of workload. If you watched his interview at the end of the game, you saw as much, right? Like, I don't know how he does this all game, right? But and not saying that he can't, but maybe the coaches, they do want to put Deebo in there a little bit just to, give him a breather or a spell. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I can see that. But other than that, I think this matchup's about covered. We'll move on here to Seahawks and Patriots. Both these defenses actually came out and were surprisingly good.
Yeah, not bad at all.
I've been, for a few seasons now, the Seahawks should be good this year. The Seahawks should be good this year just because they've had a lot of good pieces coming in. Obviously, you have Tariq Woolen. They have Devin Witherspoon. They added Leonard Williams. And the list goes on here for the amount of playmakers they have on that Seahawks defense. And it just hasn't come together. I think it is finally coming together, however, with Mike Macdonald coming over. Obviously, he was the defensive coordinator for the Ravens for a couple years there. And so I think he is... definitely got that defense going. They were great against the run. They got a ton of pressure. They look good. So this is not a great spot for the Patriots. It wasn't a great spot last week. It's probably not going to be a great spot for the rest of the season. Unless Drake May comes in and starts getting things going. But until then, just sit everyone, wait and see. Ramondre Stevenson, however, must start every single week. The
monster.
Running back getting that many touches just needs to be in lineups.
51 snaps and 28 touches. Sarge.
Yep.
Sir.
And I can't imagine that changing. The only thing,
nope.
The only thing I can imagine changing is the efficiency of those numbers and whether or not they score a touchdown, because I would imagine they're mostly going to be able to run or get yardage on the ground, but because the Seahawks defense looked so good last week, I worry about how efficient that's going to be.
Yeah, because really since 2023, they allowed 21 touchdowns and the 6th most fantasy points to running backs. But, like you said, they looked a little different.
Jaleel McLaughlin
a lot better. So, but Stevenson being the volume monster.
Yeah, you have to start him, right? Yeah. But Jaleel McLaughlin last week heading into the week from his 2022 season, we brought this up in the waiver wire video. If you haven't seen it, check it out. Jaleel McLaughlin last week had literally half of his efficiency on a per catch and per carry basis from last season. Minimum 75 attempts. There was literally one running back that was more efficient on a per carry basis. His name was Devon Achane. So other than Devon Achane last season, the most efficient on a yards per carry basis was Jaleel McLaughlin.
He sure was.
And then he went out there and had 2.1 yards per carry against that Seahawks defense this season. Just to put into perspective, that Seahawks run defense was very good last week, and I would have to imagine that it continues. So just understand that literally Ramondre Stevenson could have a game half as good as last week on the same amount of volume. So
yeah, because none of those running backs are scrubs.
No.
Not Javonte Williams, not Jaleel McLaughlin.
Yep.
So
understand that. Must starts on the Seahawks side. I would go with Kenneth Walker here, as long as he's active. He does have an oblique injury, so we'll see how much that affects as we go throughout the week, so just pay attention to that one. But the Patriots defense was good last week, so I would be concerned. And they got pieces. I mean, Christian Gonzalez was super good last season before he got hurt, and he is looking good again this season.
Yes, he is.
And so, coupled with the rest of it, it's just they came out and shut down the Bengals, and you do have to wonder how much was that the Bengals. I mean, Jamar Chase didn't play all of training camp. I heard that the vibes were bad in Bengals training camp, so I can't say I'm shocked by this, just because what I was hearing all training camp wasn't positive.
The signs were there.
Oh, absolutely. I drafted no Jamar Chase, no Joe Burrow. I just wasn't going to get after it. But so it'll be interesting to see how the Patriots defense looks this week. If they go out there and they're terrible, then the Bengals are in trouble, right? But I think they could be good. And yeah, so just understand that the secondary is good. Christian Gonzalez is likely to shadow DK Metcalf. I wouldn't start Metcalf if I don't have to.
Don't go after that.
I wouldn't start Jackson Smith and Jigba or Geno Smith. I'd be okay with starting Tyler Lockett. I think he has the best matchup here this week, and he had the best week last week. So I think if you have to start a Seattle wide receiver, Tyler Lockett, I think, could get you, 12, 13 points, kind of what he did last week. But I want the running backs in this game, and I would want to sit everyone else. I don't expect this to be a high-scoring game or a game conducive to passing success.
Yeah, just who did he cover last week? Chase. He covered Chase, didn't he? And even the things aren't vibing in Cincinnati. I mean, that's still your shadow covering Jamar Chase, and he really didn't produce anything, non-existent in that game. So Metcalf, you don't want that smoke. Giants Commanders, let's go. This one's got the fireworks right here, baby.
I mean, here, this I got you.
Let's
Classic
go, baby.
Movable object against a stoppable force in this game.
Oh, man.
Very movable object, very stoppable force on both sides here. So
I love it.
It's possible. Look,
this is it. Daniel Jones gonna turn it around, baby.
For this game and never again. Right?
I love it.
So both these defenses were bottom of the league in just about every defensive metric you can look at. Completion percentage, Commanders gave up a 80%, which was the first worst in the entire league. Giants were 79.2%, third worst. If we look at yards per attempt, passing attempt, Commanders gave up 9 point something. That was fourth worst, and the Giants gave up, I think it's 8.67, which was ninth.
It is 8.67. I can't see, brothers.
I can't see. If you saw our last thing, I don't have my context in. I put them back in. I can't see very well without them. But I think in QBR, Commanders gave up 148 point first, which was the highest QBR that any defense gave up last week. And the Giants at 112.2, which was the ninth or the eighth. That's just a analytic way to say that both of these defenses are shite, right? So,
which means that they can.
Both of these offenses could go out there and produce.
Just toss it around the yard, pretty much.
So
Neighbors, what? He's Who's covering Neighbors? Who's the guy that
Maybe Brandon St. Juice.
St. Just? That's the guy. Benjamin. Yep.
Benjamin, there it is.
Mm-hmm. And you saw what he did against Evans last week.
Yep.
Lord
So,
have mercy.
like I said, movable object against a stoppable force. This could go one of two ways, and it is only going one of two ways. It's going to be surprisingly good, or it's going to be
it's going to stink up the house.
absolutely horrid because both of the offenses are too bad to even capitalize on it. So we'll see. On top of all that, in fact, the Giants gave up one of the highest explosive run rates across the entire league. It was second worst. So for Jaden Daniels, Brian Robinson, and Austin Eckler, they could probably run all over the Giants this week.
Fire him up.
Already, the only must start in this game is Jaden Daniels. He looked okay. He's going to have to develop, as all rookies are going to be. But as far as it goes, across every rookie quarterback that started week 1, he was the best. And there are numbers to support that. So if you are rostering Jaden Daniels, I have Jaden Daniels in a couple leagues. I'm pretty excited about it. The rushing is there.
Mm-hmm.
He's a locked-in, probably top 8 quarterback.
Rushed for 2 last week.
2 touchdowns, 80-something yards. That's going to keep the floor so high.
Yeah.
And if he develops as a passer and gets going with McLaurin, which I think could happen.
I like McLaurin here in this spot.
Oh, yeah, for sure. But down the stretch in the season is more what I'm talking about. Jaden Daniels could really be top 5, top 3 QB if he ascends in the passing game, and that gives them a much better ceiling every week. So that's the only must start in this game. But honestly, Devin Singletary, Malik Neighbors, and Wan'Dale Robinson are all strong starts because the defense is so bad. And Wan'Dale Robinson actually has one of the best cornerback matchups across the entire league this season. And with that whopping 31% target share last week.
11 targets last week? 12 targets last week?
I don't know. I know the target share. 31% target share last week.
It was a good amount.
He could go out there and feast this week. Malik Neighbors had by rookie wide receivers metrics, kind of one of the best wide receiver performance by all rookie wide receivers. So I think in this game, with a secondary this bad, Neighbors and Robinson could definitely feast. And while the Commanders were better on the ground, I think Devin Singletary is getting enough of the work, on a percentage basis.
Yeah, volume-wise.
You're probably still starting him. If you have better options, great. But if you don't, I think he's going to give you
at least flex-worthy.
Yeah. Terry McLaurin, Brian Robinson, Austin Eckler, all strong starts. Good matchup. They could all feast. Brian Robinson and Austin Eckler split snaps pretty evenly. It worked out exactly as we thought it would. Eckler is the passing down back. Brian Robinson is getting your first and second downs kind of thing. So both are startable. Both could feast this week. I like Eckler scoring a long touchdown in this game. If I was betting, I think that is just so. As a Giants fan that watches these games, that is just what's going to happen. I know Austin Eckler is going to take off and score this long touchdown, and you're just going to be like,
God, why?
Can we not tackle? Yeah. Right? So that's neither here nor there. All of them are strong starts.
Maybe Singletary gets himself one, right? 50 snaps, 14 touches, right? We already know he's got the backfield to himself. Commanders allowing 4th most points to running backs, to visiting running backs since 2023. So maybe Singletary gets himself one too.
Well, I forgot to talk about Daniel Jones. The only reason I don't have him as a sit and a meh is because Daniel Jones, for whatever reason, plays good against the Commanders. I don't know why it is. So if there was ever a game to start Daniel Jones as
get him on the
streaming,
good foot, get him on the right foot,
it's this game.
Yeah.
Against this bad defense and against a team he has historically played well against.
And if he can't do it here, just bench him.
Yep. Well, even if he gets it done here, bench him, right? If there was ever a week to start him, this could be it. If you're in that position, I'm sorry, but Daniel Jones is an option for streaming here. Moving on.
Chargers, Panthers. J.K. Dobbins, man.
Did we all see that clip?
Him. Good for him. J.K. Dobbins.
Did we all see that clip of John Harbaugh beating up Justin Herbert? Just punching his pads, and Justin Herbert didn't even know what to do.
Just taking it.
Yeah, it was like watching a kid
it was so weird
at a family reunion, and you've got aunts and people you don't really know loving up on you, and you're just taking it. And I don't know what to do here. Pretty funny.
It was pretty funny.
You'd love to see it for Justin Herbert. I love Justin Herbert. I had him his rookie season in fantasy. I've had him since he came in the league. I think I've only not had him twice.
Yeah, it stinks that the environment is what it is for him right now, and I don't mean bad culture-wise, but just it's not a good environment for him as a quarterback, but
Well, as a fantasy contributor, I would say
Yeah.
more so. Because as a quarterback, the numbers should be efficient. As a football fan, as a Justin Herbert fan, I'm excited to see. I hope he goes and gets to the playoffs, has strong playoff performances, and just like puts that to rest.
which really isn't out of the realm of possibility.
not.
If they lean on the run game, J.K. Dobbins holds up, all goes well, they play good defense. Who's
and
to
Herbert's
say-
going to be efficient in the passing
who's
game,
to
right?
say that they don't?
I like
right?
Chargers. And I like Herbert here too. Because people like to hate on Herbert so bad, and it irks me because he's just like so clearly an elite quarterback, and the only thing people can point to is the wins, and it's just like, guys, the wins are not a QB stat. This is the ultimate team sport, man.
I followed him in Oregon before he came to the NFL. He was one of the quarterbacks that I was, early on saying, if this guy makes it to the NFL, he's going to be all right. And
awesome.
I still stand by it.
However, Justin Herbert is only a meh in this game
Yes.
just because they're going to be a run-heavy team. And even if the passing numbers
Yeah,
are
because it
efficient...
definitely has nothing to do with the Panthers' defense, that's for sure.
No, the Panthers stink. Bryce Young probably stinks. I feel bad for Panthers fans. It's looking bad. So the Chargers aren't actually a horrible matchup for the Panthers, but it's probably not going to matter. You should probably sit everyone in this game, including Deontay Johnson, until we see any life from this offense. Just sit everyone. If you drafted Jonathan Brooks, I'd be worried at this point because no matter how good Jonathan Brooks is, an offense this terrible, it's just not going to matter.
Yeah.
So
Deontay Johnson worried me with coming into the season. I don't know if it was the hope or if the indicators were that he was going to have this massive target share.
indicators were there, absolutely.
And here comes Leggett and Mingo rotating into kind of like his work. And he didn't get this target share that the indicators were there for. And I don't know, man. It's just put him on your bench until you see it turn around.
Yeah.
Sad day.
That's why he was going as late as he was. It was because it was like, well,
It is
yeah, but Bryce Young and the Panthers are probably
yeah.
terrible, so I don't know if it matters.
I know that, but it's still the indicators were that he was going to have this
Great
massive
target
target
share.
share, and maybe it turns around.
Absolutely. No overreactions
Right?
in week
No
one.
overreactions, no panicking, but it was concerning to me to see how much that rotation actually happened.
Absolutely. The Panthers last week allowed the 8th most carries, and I would expect that we have a similar outcome this week. That's why J.K. Dobbins is the must start. I would say Gus Edwards is still a strong start. Even if he wasn't the one that blew up in the box score, he actually had more carries. He was involved. J.K. Dobbins slightly edged him out because J.K. Dobbins was the receiving back as well. So I expect both these backs to have efficient games, get plenty of touches. That's all you want, really. So
you don't think it's clearly J.K. Dobbins' backfield? Like you still expect some sort of split just going forward, period?
absolutely.
Permanently.
As the weeks go on, if J.K. Dobbins continues to outperform Gus Edwards to such a
In
significant
such
degree,
a way, yeah.
sure, it can tilt that way, but there's no indication off of just this week one performance that it's not going to be. Like I
Yeah.
said, Gus Edwards had one more carry than he did. Like, there's no indication to me that this is absolutely going to be
Yeah,
J.K.
I
Dobbins'
gotcha.
backfield, so just temper expectations, but in a matchup like this, I'd still think J.K. Dobbins could go out there and have another strong week.
Yeah, for sure.
The Panthers allowed a 141 passer rating, which was second in the league, so the passing attack should be efficient. Justin Herbert's awesome, as we talked about. That kind of opens the door to starting McConkey or Palmer. Lad McConkey was startable last week. I think he should continue to develop. I think the chemistry should continue
Little
to develop.
lad! Let's go, boy!
So you could start him. I hope this early in the season that you have better options, but yeah.
I keep thinking of Gage. Took Lad McConkey first.
I think it was the second.
Was it second?
Yeah.
My man, I gotta love it.
So
I gotta
yeah.
love it.
For context, my little brother played fantasy, and he heard us talking up Lad McConkey, and he just liked the name. And so, in one of our home leagues here, second round, he drafted McCaffrey in the first, and then second round, he said, Lad McConkey. And we were like, no.
No, wait,
Why would you do that?
Yeah,
but yeah.
God bless him.
Hopefully it works out.
Yes.
That's sticking to your guns and just going
I
with the
mean,
guys.
you know what I mean?
You gotta love it.
Absolutely.
Moving on here, the Browns and Jaguars. This is probably a gross game, to be honest with you. Deshaun Watson's horrible.
What's there to like here?
Jerome Ford.
Outside of Jerome Ford, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Both of these defenses were pretty tough on the ground, honestly. More susceptible on the ground in the passing game, particularly the Jaguars. They got absolutely torched by Achane, Waddle, and Hill. Most defenses get torched by those three people, though. So cut them some slack, but at the end of the day, they did struggle in the passing game. So that opens the door here for Amari Cooper. Obviously, he's going to be the number one target, especially because I think Njoku is set to miss this week.
Yeah, I think so too.
Amari Cooper is a strong start this week. He should see the target share. The Jaguars' defense should be ready to give it up for Mr. Cooper. So he's a strong start.
Mentioning that, how do you feel about Jordan Akins then? No, not really.
As we talked about with Likely, he is the only tight end handcuff in the league. There's no tight end other than him, that's gonna step into a workload and be even worth starting.
Yeah, I got it.
Because there are so few really good tight ends in the league that there's no team has a surplus that the second man up is just gonna step in and be
Just
great in
wow.
fantasy. Because obviously, as we always talk about, targets are earned in the NFL. So just because you step into that role doesn't mean you're gonna be good enough to earn the targets. Period.
Yeah.
Right. So I would avoid that, especially because the Browns looked atrocious on offense. Deshaun Watson is cooked. If you haven't known that for the last couple of seasons, but he should have an easier time this week. Not enough for me to say you're starting Deshaun Watson, but for enough to think that Amari Cooper could have a good game and look half competent. Despite being trampled by the Cowboys last week, though, the Browns still kept the fantasy production down for the Cowboys. I mean, CeeDee Lamb didn't have a good game. No one had an amazing game here.
And we knew that. We called that.
So you're probably starting Etienne this week just because of where you drafted him, but I would be concerned with how good Bigsby looked last week and the fact that they split carries evenly.
Mm-hmm.
That is something to monitor going forward.
Definitely something to monitor.
So, and because of the matchup, Trevor Lawrence, Christian Kirk, Brian Thomas, I would still be skeptical in starting. Brian Thomas looked good. That's exciting. Another LSU boy opposite of Malik Neighbors. But this
Not
week,
good for Evan Ingram though.
No, it was a poor week, but literally every elite tight end in the freaking league last week did terrible.
Yeah, but what was the concern with Ingram is that he saw the fewest targets out of all three. Out of Brian Thomas, Christian Kirk, and
Gabe Davis?
Yes. All three.
I don't think that continues.
To me, that was surprising.
Let's just understand who Gabe Davis is, right? There's no way, when we're looking at a historical protection standpoint, that we ever think that Gabe Davis should have a more significant target share than Evan Ingram. It's never happened. We have a big body of work to support that. So that is don't overreact to week one. Evan Ingram is probably going to be fine. I wouldn't start him this week just because it's a tough matchup here,
but not because of
that. I mean, if you have the option, concerns. I would like to see it, just because it wasn't a great game from Evan Ingram, but I think he'll be fine. He obviously doesn't have any competition in that tight end room. I think he'll be okay.
Yeah.
You're sitting Tank Bigsby this week until we see that workload.
Start seeing it lean more. Consistency. Yeah, for sure.
But other than that, and I would start Jerome Ford. He was, I believe, third in the NFL in total percentage of running back touches. So he's getting the lion's share over there.
Yeah, you're starting Ford.
He has a high expected points per game. He was fine last week, even in a tough matchup. So Jerome Ford is a good start. He's probably going to remain in your lineups until Chubb gets back, and probably even after that.
Ravens, the double R.
Double R. You have to start Devontae Adams every week.
You have to.
And I will say that the Ravens were kind of suspect in the passing game, and as a defense as a whole. Obviously, Mike McDonald.
But we kind of talked about that.
Yeah, they lost pieces, and
it might take a.
They lost the defensive coordinator too.
You know,
Mike McDonald isn't there,
it's gonna take a little bit. But.
So we'll see. The Raiders allowed a 14.8% explosive rush rate, which was 9th in the NFL. So good game for this Ravens running game. On the flip side, Ravens allowed a 5% explosive rush rate, which was 27th in the league. So not a good spot for these running backs. coupled with the fact that my fear was Zamir White was realized this week.
It sure was.
I called
man.
I
Take
mean,
your victory lap. You know what? Here's your flowers.
I was gonna get up, but I don't feel like it.
Man.
Anyway, I called that. I think I
golly.
said to sit him last week too.
Man, you were calling that in the off season still.
Oh yeah,
That's how far back you were talking about Zamir White, and
people were drafting him with this expectation that he was just gonna get like 100% of the running back touch, and I was like, they went out and signed Alexander Madison. That is not what the indication has been. I don't know, man.
and then the small sample size, like yeah, it looked great, but
It was against all 5 of those games at the end of last season were against bottom run defenses on top of it. Like,
Right.
we have no data to even say that this guy was good. It was literally the Alexander Madison situation, funny enough, from last season. We had these little games
Yeah, you're
of
right.
Alexander Madison stepping
oh my
in
gosh, that
and
is such
being
a great
great.
comparison.
And then even last season, I was saying it too about Alexander Madison. I was
Madison,
like,
yeah.
look, we have a small sample size of him stepping in. And when you look at these games, it's all been against bottom run
Bad
defenses.
defenses,
Like,
yeah.
we don't. And on top of it, we had years long of his efficiency metrics dropping every single season. Every time he would have to step in a relief of Cook. Like, I was just sitting there, I was like, I don't know if this is a good idea with Alexander Madison. We have no validation that this guy is
Right.
even good at football. So that's how I felt about Zamir White, and so far it's looking good.
There it
Like I
is.
said, I'm taking my victory lap. Coupled with that, and the fact that it is a atrocious environment matchup, do not start Zamir White or Alexander Madison. You probably aren't starting them for the rest of the season unless one of them gets injured. Brock Bowers.
Brock Bowers.
I think he led the team in targets.
I'll take my victory lap.
You'll
there.
take a victory lap. I didn't think,
Give me my flowers.
at least for week 1. We'll see.
Yeah,
as
at
it
least for
develops.
week 1. Yes, at least for week 1.
I was off of Brock Bowers just because he was almost being drafted with this little expectation that he was a lock to go and have a Sam Laporta season. When Sam Laporta literally had the best rookie tight end season of all time. Expecting that for a position that traditionally takes a long time to develop was just
Yeah.
like, I needed Bowers
Yeah,
to be
not
going
everyone
way
can
later.
come in and have a Sam Laporta season right out the gate. Really, who
No one.
has?
Literally no one.
No one.
So I was just like, let's pump the brakes here. I need this guy going later.
Yeah, and with and with Bowers, he's not in a bad spot either. Ravens, we already talked about. The defense isn't what it was necessarily, and with that, they were giving up averaging 9 points to tight ends since last season. So, can he have a better week this week?
It's possible. I mean, he had a startable week last week,
Yeah.
so I would be fine. Like I said, we have him as a strong start here, as well as Jacoby Myers. I would be fine with starting Brock Bowers. Now, my lean would be to sit him another week until we see it happen again. He led the team in targets, had a 23% target share, and played 68% of the snaps. So all good usage. We'd
Yeah.
like to see all that ascend a little bit before we're really excited, but
Yeah, I know
We'll see.
I know one of the concerns was, okay, are they going to give Brock Bowers that type of usage and targets when Jacoby Myers is still there? Opposite Devontae Adams, and so still a shaky situation to monitor.
absolutely. And this is still not going to be a high-octane offense. It's not going to be a offense with elite quarterback play. There was a lot going against him this offseason why I was just kind of off him. And this 1 8-point performance does not completely sway me. I'm just saying.
No.
We had
Absolutely
encouraging
not.
things here,
No,
but
there were some good things, yeah.
I could still be right in saying that Brock Bowers was being overdrafted for the situation and all the environmental factors. I just felt like he needed to be going way later.
Yeah, no. Fantasy points wise, no. Just the usage and the targets were encouraging.
Absolutely. So we'll see if that continues. The Ravens were actually one of the worst passing defenses in the league last week, surprisingly enough. I just wonder if the Raiders can capitalize on that, just because, like I said, this isn't a top-end offense. It's not a top-end quarterback play. But
Yeah.
because of that, I think Jacoby Myers, Brock Bowers, and Devontae Adams are all startable this week. As we mentioned, White, you should need to be sitting. He only played 38% of the snaps. Him and Madison played poorly. It was just not great. So that's where we stand there. Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry, you're both starting. As we talked about, the explosive rush rate was super high on the Raiders last week. Derrick Henry should have a bounce back
I think
week
so,
this
for sure.
week. Lamar Jackson's obviously top-end starter. The strong starts. I've got Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely both as strong starts this week. I think the
Both.
usage was about even, and I think both of them can go out there and post a good week this week. against this Raiders defense. So
See, I think it's as the fantasy gods would have it. I think we're gonna see a reversal.
Isaiah
I
Likely's
think
gonna
it's gonna
suck in
be
Andrews.
Isaiah Likely is gonna be who's Isaiah Likely, and it's gonna go right back to Mark Andrews is the man here.
In other circumstances, I would 100% think that, but taking into consideration the whole offseason and how much they were talking up
Yeah, of wanting them both involved.
on the field,
Yeah,
like
for sure.
it's just like at a certain point, they've told us what they're gonna do, and we've got to believe them at a certain point, right? We can't
Yeah.
keep playing this game of, oh no, it's coach speak. It's coach speak. There's no way this is how it goes. At a certain point, they said this all offseason, and the week one they come out and it's exactly that. So
Yeah. So obviously, you can't play them both. If you have them both, let's just say you got Mark
yeah.
Andrews, you got Likely. Who you starting?
I would go Mark Andrews this week just because we've got a larger sample size of him being great, and I highly doubt that he is bracketed out of this game in the same way. So I would lean Mark Andrews until we see otherwise, right? This is one game of Isaiah Likely outproducing Mark Andrews when they're on the same field. So I would expect that Mark Andrews is probably the lean and the safer bet here, but I
Same.
think both could have a better game. Zay Flowers only as a meh. He is almost unstartable until I see this offense improve. That the entire game they were running the most abysmal routes. Everything was at the line of scrimmage. I know the defense struggled, but at a certain or the offensive line struggled. Excuse me, but it was just like, what are we doing?
It was hard to watch for me.
A little
It
bit.
was hard to watch.
A little bit.
I was watching this game, literally, like, what are we doing here?
It felt so incompetent, especially with the way they were using Derrick Henry and Justice Hill. You literally brought Derrick Henry in to open up the passing game in a lot of ways. Because when Derrick Henry is back there,
You have to
defense
account
has
for him.
so much to worry about.
You have to account for him.
Right? But what they were doing was like literally tipping their hand. Every running play, it was going to Derrick Henry, and he was on the field. And every passing play, Henry
was off
wasn't
the
on the
field.
field, and it was
Yeah.
Justice Hill. The defense literally knew at that point
Yeah, that's
exactly what you were doing.
You're not tricking, disguising
Nothing.
anything.
You're literally tipping your hand every play, and you could see it because Derrick Henry had one of the highest stacked box rates in the league. Week
I don't
one.
know what was going
You don't
on there.
want that.
I don't know what was going
So
on there.
I hope they realized, and I think they did, because in the second half you saw a lot more of Henry on the field, not as much Justice Hill. So I think they learned that, but that first half was brutal. It was like, what are we doing? You might as well be announcing before every play, we're running this ball, we're passing it. Derrick Henry needs to be playing an egregious amount of snaps. I
Yes.
know you like Justice Hill, but
Yes.
I'm not saying Derrick Henry needs to have an egregious amount
Doesn't
of
mean he has
touches.
to rush 30 times, but he needs to be on the field.
Yeah, I'm not saying he
Period,
needs the
point blank.
touches. I'm saying he needs to be out there whether you're running or passing the ball.
Right.
Because then defensively, schematically, you're thinking, okay, Lamar can run this. That's dangerous. Derrick Henry could run this. That's dangerous. Or they could pass it. So now you've really got to make some decisions there as a defense on what you're covering. That makes the play action so much worse. Because if you're thinking about calling a game, I always talk about the difference between calling a game and calling plays.
Oh, yeah.
Calling a game, you have a sequence. You're playing 4D chess. Calling plays, you're just going play to play to play. That's what they were doing last week. I hope they do better, because when you're calling a game, you're thinking about how you're sequencing the plays together. With Derrick Henry on the
setting
feet,
up how you're setting up for your next
Big
third,
shot.
fourth, fifth order
Yeah.
effect down the line.
with Derrick Henry on the field, you're running, he's getting going, and then that opens up play action passes where they're biting on the run now. You can't run play action ever with Justice Hill on the field because they know you're not giving it to him.
When you talk about calling a game, first thing that comes to mind from week one was Sean McVay, Cooper Kupp.
Oh yes,
When
I
they
would
were-
like to take this one.
Take it.
So all game we saw Cooper Kupp running the same motion from one side of the field to the other, from one side of the field to the other. He did it all game long, and then I think on the game tying touchdown, they had him come over like they did all game from the left side of the field to the right side of the field, but then double move in the backfield, came back for the first time in that game, and it completely psyched out his defender, and that is how they got that
Out
touchdown.
of his cleats.
And that is how
'Cause he
Cooper
fell.
Kupp got that touchdown.
Yep.
I saw it. I remember raving about it in the game. That is how you call a game. That was beautiful. That's why Sean McVay is awesome. That is how you call a game. It was just so wonderfully set up, and it was great. It was
You
great to see.
hypnotize him.
Exactly.
It's exactly what he was. Yeah, that's what
Snake charmed him
Yeah,
right
it was
out of
great.
his cleats. Yeah,
It's fucking beautiful.
that was amazing. Anyway, we've
Sorry, I
Haven't-
cussed. I cussed, brother. I'm sorry.
I've cussed multiple times. It's hard out here. But anyway, we've talked football and not fantasy for a hot minute. Let's move on.
Rams, Cardinals.
Speaking of the Rams,
There we go.
this might be my favorite game of the week. I think this game should be
Cooper Kupp must start. I would caution against thinking you're going to see 21 targets to Cooper Kupp again, though.
I would advise the opposite.
Would you?
I think he could go out there and do it again. We watched him do it for a full season in 2022
Well, I guess that's true.
or
yeah.
2021. We watched him do it every game he was healthy. 2022, like that's just what he does, right? And with Puka Nacua not in the field,
Yeah.
there's no doubt that's gonna what. And here's the other thing: I'm not sure. I think this could easily be a misconception that he only did that because Puka Nacua got hurt. No,
No.
through the first 2 drives, Cooper Kupp 5 receptions, Puka Nacua 1. That shit was already happening before he
Right.
got hurt.
And if
So-
you go back to any of our other videos, we've
talking about
we've
Cooper.
been mentioned that don't just think that, I think it was in the
All I know
mock
is
drafting. I think it was in the mock drafting
Well-
videos. Like Puka Nacua, you're taking him this high over Cooper Kupp, where you're taking the discount on Kupp, and
he could easily outperform
Like,
Puka.
you
I
know,
mean,
like,
if you go back to our
why?
best picks at every position video, my best pick at every position was Cooper Kupp, and I outlined my reasons for that, and it paid off week 1, taking a victory lap there. We'll see how it works out the rest of the season, but it doesn't sound good on Puka. He got put on IR, and
Yeah.
someone asked him, because they got a bye week 6, and a reporter
did
asked
ask.
him if, do you think that gives them a good time for him to be back? And he was like, well, when you're talking about Puka, their tackle and someone else, they've all got specific injuries that could keep him out longer.
unique.
So it was just like,
Yeah.
okay, Puka
Okay.
we might not see that guy. And if he's already struggled all training camp with injuries, he's missing time now, we might not see him get his footing the rest of the season, especially because Cooper Kupp is Cooper Kupp. He looks healthy, he looks good, the usage is there, and
Okay.
Cooper
We
Kupp,
told you, get Cooper Kupp at a discount.
we did tell you
Here it
many
is.
times. So yeah, Cooper Kupp, easy league winner. I think this season that he's well on his way.
Kyron Williams.
He dispelled any worries about
He
that
sure
target or about the volume here.
Sure did. Kyron
91% of
Williams,
snaps,
you fire him
91%
up.
of running back touches. Like,
Don't
it
even
was
need
all
to
there.
talk about it.
Absolutely. Strong starts. Matthew Stafford, once again, is a good streamer in this matchup. The Cardinals gave up a ton of points to Josh Allen last week.
Yes.
They should be in a prime position here to explode. I think Demarcus Robinson and Colby Parkinson are both startable this week as players that should see plenty of playing time. And if this game explodes and we have a lot of points and we have a lot of passing and a positive game script, I think all of
I
them.
picked up Parkinson
I did see that.
just because Ferguson, we're not really sure. He also had the knee
think it was
injury,
MCL
I believe,
sprain.
right? MCL sprain. So I picked up Parkinson. We'll see how he does.
James Conner this week is set up really well. He should have a big game. Rams gave up 5.28 yards per carry last
Yes, sir.
week, which was, I think, 8th. So he's set up really well. He should explode
he
this
is.
game. The Rams were fine in the secondary for the most part. Obviously, Amon-Ra had a slow day. Jameson Williams had himself a day, right? But other than that, the passing game didn't explode the way you expect out of the Rams. So even with that being said, I think some of that was just early in the season.
Yeah.
As good as the Rams' defense is, I don't think it's impenetrable, but you probably have to start Marvin Harrison. With that being said, but if
Marvin Harrison played well. He didn't play bad, and there was Kyler Murray missed him.
yeah, it looked like Kyler Murray was scrambling for his life
There
most of the
was
game but
at least a couple of times where Kyler Murray missed him.
yeah.
So
Be patient.
be patient.
Remember, he's a rookie. They'll get it going, I think. So, with that being said, because it was an abysmal week, I would be cautious about starting. Like I said, you probably have to start him where you drafted him, but I would love to be able to wait and see and wait for that to get going. But if there was a game that it could happen, it's definitely this
Yeah.
game and another shootout.
This could definitely be one of those bounce back, for sure.
Absolutely. So start your players here. I think there are plenty of options to go around in a game that could offer us one of the highest totals. Steelers Broncos. What a gross game, guys. No must starts on either side here.
Oh boy.
Steelers defense played
Man.
really well last week, but
Yep.
you do have to wonder how much of that was inflated by Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins is clearly not healthy or confident.
I
He's coming off an Achilles tear.
yeah, I want to hope that it's more rusty.
He might be. He looked rusty too. It just all looked like this guy needs some more reps, more time, getting up to game speed. He wasn't confident going through all his reads. I sat down and watched every single one of his dropbacks the other night. He didn't look confident going through all his reads. It was a lot of, all right, this is my first read, and I'm just trying to get it to him. And so that leads to a lot of incompletions because you're not actually reading the field and adjusting for the defense and what they're doing. Especially in this league of pattern matching defenses, you need to be processing post-snap.
It's like he was trying to get off to a fast start and just kept getting off to a fast start and nothing slowed down for him. It was just
he wasn't up to game speed at all. He couldn't get things going. He was incredibly immobile. You could tell he was trying not to move. I think they had one snap under center, which the under center sets up the play action, which sets up more fantasy points and efficiency in the passing game. So there was a lot going wrong there. With that being said, the Steelers are still a good defense, and they played really well. Yes. So you worry about the Broncos because it's not like we got a crazy quarterback upgrade with Bo Nix. Bo Nix honestly looked good.
He didn't play bad.
No, it probably didn't look good in the box score, but if you watch the game, he looked pretty good, and I think he could continue to ascend
to
be
get better. Yeah,
a competent NFL QB.
For sure.
But heading into week 2, I don't think that's the week it happens, so he'll probably struggle in this game, which keeps the floors down for everyone. This isn't a game that I expect to be super conducive to fantasy success. I would also expect shadow coverage from Pat Surtain and Joey Porter.
Oh, yeah.
Which isn't great for Cortland Sutton or George Pickens.
Nope. Neither one of them. Downgrade.
Absolutely. I wouldn't be starting either one of them.
Nope.
The Broncos running backs are in a pretty good position, though, this week, especially to bounce back. Bijan Robinson had a pretty good game. Now, it wasn't the most efficient on the ground, so I think Jaleel probably has the upper hand here and producing in the passing game to allow his fantasy day to be okay. But because I don't expect this to be a good passing attack, I would expect both rushing offenses to kind of be at the forefront here. And so I think all the running backs could be startable here. You're not starting Jalen Warren or Pat Freiermuth. It's not great usage. It's not going to happen. No, Najee Harris got 21 touches. So
yeah, that Najee Harris definitely has the lean here in this Arthur Smith-led disaster.
If Justin Fields is starting once again, which I think he is, you can start him if you have to. The rushing upside is always there. Didn't hit last week, but I could hit any week. I think that's about that one.
Alrighty.
Bengals
Chiefs. Man, this game in
years past would have been so exciting.
Yesteryear would have been like, you'd have been licking your chops, boy. And now it's like
the Chiefs are going to dominate, right? Now, obviously, that's off of the reaction from week 1.
Yeah.
The Bengals didn't look good. The Patriots looked good. You have to wonder, obviously, Jamar Chase didn't really practice all of training camp. Joe Burrow is, on their injury report with that wrist again. And as I talked about earlier, the vibes just weren't good with the Bengals.
That's funny because I mentioned that last week. Like, we're going to see how that wrist holds up.
Yeah, so it's just not great. Zach Moss did take the bulk of the carries in the backfield, but I wonder how much that evens out throughout the season because I don't think Zach Moss produced enough to say, oh, he's absolutely running away with the job just yet. We'll see how it develops, but right now you're not starting Chase Brown.
It looks good.
Yeah. You're not starting Chase Brown, and you maybe could timidly start Zach Moss, but the Chiefs' defensive line played really well against the Ravens, limited Derrick Henry, so I would be cautious. I wouldn't start either one of them if I didn't have to. You're probably starting Burrow if you drafted him. You're absolutely starting Jamar Chase. Nothing to go over there. Both could. I'm worried about both of them, and if this Bengals offense looks as bad as it did last week, I think we need to be worried about this team.
Yeah.
or at least start to get
or
worried.
start getting worried.
Because obviously it's a long season, they could get it together. And I mean, they start slow every season. Like for the past 3 seasons, they've always started slow and then gotten better. So we'll see. No reason to be overly concerned just yet, but this does have shootout potential. Joe Burrow, there is no quarterback in the NFL that plays better against Patrick Mahomes than Joe Burrow for whatever reason. I think he's 6-1 or something against him. So I mean, easily could be the bounce back game for the Bengals here. They will need to bounce back though, because if they perform like last week, it's not going to be good enough.
It's going to be past concerning.
For the Chiefs, you're starting Rashee Rice probably every week. Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, Isaiah Pacheco, all of those guys are starting.
Rashee Rice for sure.
I wouldn't put Xavier Worthy in a strong start just yet, just because he had 2 touches or something. Obviously, it showed up good in the box score because of the touchdown, but until the usage goes up, it's hard to.
It's not sustainable.
Yeah, it's hard to say that. Okay, we need to be starting this guy. Until it goes up, I would still be benching him.
Hollywood Brown.
I have him as a sit. I think he's going to be back this week. But
I know he's not back, right? But
he should be back this week.
Should he?
Yeah, I think he's questionable right now. He could be back this week, but I have him as a sit, as you can see. Until you see how he's going to fit in and look, I would just avoid it. And maybe he doesn't play this week. We'll see. Nothing's confirmed just yet. Bears Texans, another gross game. Not because the Texans are bad, because the Bears are bad. So it's like Joe Mixon about to freaking feast again.
Man.
Woo! Joe Mixon.
That guy.
About to probably go off again this week. This is not a game I expect the Bears to stay competitive in. I will say the Texans gave up a massive 23.58 yards per attempt or per reception, which is crazy and is going to regress to some degree, especially because it was a small sample size of only 9 receptions. So, but at the end of the day, they gave up huge plays in the passing game. So if Caleb Williams can get going this week, Keenan Allen and DJ Moore, who combined for a 63% of the total targets on the entire team, both of them are in good positions in this matchup because the Texans secondary gave up some big plays. And if Caleb improves this week, we could get some good games. So I think they have strong starts just because the target share is so high. But I would still be concerned until we kind of see this Bears offense take off. DeAndre Swift had most of the touches, didn't look great on them. Still wasn't a ton of touches. I was off DeAndre Swift because of that. I mean,
10 touches for 5 points. Lord.
Yeah, Matt Eberflus just hasn't given us any indication that he wants to use one running back. So I would believe that. You can start him just because he was clearly the lead back. And if they have a better game this week, then should be okay.
I mean, Houston still held Johnny Taylor to 3 yards per rush last week.
The rush defense was pretty good. So
it's not a good spot.
With that being said, on the Texans, you are starting C.J. Stroud, Nico Collins, and Joe Mixon every single week. Must starts. And I would say Tank Dell and Stephon Diggs are probably strong starts every week. We'll see how this continues to fold out as the week goes on. Obviously, Stephon Diggs was the one that showed up big in the box score with 6 receptions, 36 yards, and 2 touchdowns. But understand 2 touchdowns and 36 yards was kind of just like,
and it's the same as Xavier Worthy.
Yeah, it was kind of like
two targets, or what was it? You said 2 targets. He had the 2. Was it the 2 touchdowns?
Xavier Worthy just had 1 touchdown.
1 touchdown, right? 2 targets, 1 touchdown. Looked good points wise, but
the ADOT here for Stephon Diggs was not great. I have been saying all offseason that Diggs is probably your traditional slot receiver. He's not going to be the ones playing on either side. With the ADOT, what it was for Stephon Diggs, I absolutely think that was true. I mean, 6 receptions for 36 yards. Putrid. I don't know if that continues, but there's no way he's going to score 2 touchdowns every week.
No.
Otherwise, it would have just been 9 points this week. Tank Dell obviously didn't show up big, but he had more targets than Stephon Diggs. He had over 100 air yards, so they just clearly weren't connecting, and I would expect that chemistry and them to connect at a much higher rate. Tank Dell had a 42.9% catch rate, abysmal, while the team average was 77.4%. Yeah. So just understand the positive regression here for Tank Dell is definitely promising. I think Tank Dell should be in a much better spot. They just didn't connect. Otherwise, we would have had more of a, 6-7 reception, almost 100-yard game.
Yeah.
So
chase targets, chase usage.
Yep. utilization
not-
is
right.
way more telling.
Do not chase points.
So, but I think both can be strong starts because this is a good offense, and I think all three of these guys, 7, 7, and 6 targets for Nico Collins, Tank Dell, and Stephon Diggs. The usage is there; they're all going to be involved. We'll see how it continues to go on, but I think you're probably starting pretty much everyone here you have on the Texans.
Yeah, we said, this is an offense that can potentially support 3 fantasy wideouts.
Yep.
The headache might be just knowing maybe
Some of
which
the
one's going to hit
irregularity.
on every week, but let's see how it pans out.
Falcons Eagles.
Falcons Eagles.
Battle of the Birds.
Battle of the Birds.
As we talked about a moment ago, Kirk Cousins did not look good, and because of that, I would prefer to sit Drake London, maybe even sit Kyle Pitts, but because the tight end position is what it is,
Now,
probably still starting Pitts.
Now, we did mention last week, too, that the Eagles secondary is vulnerable, and we did see some of that last week, too, so it's not out of the realm of possibility either for maybe London to have a good game.
Yeah, and I yes, it's not out of the realm of possibility, but given how Kirk Cousins looked,
Yeah.
it's almost out of the realm of possibility. I just don't think he's going to have such a good week that he
A
burns you.
1 week turnaround.
No,
from
I think
how
we're
he
going to
looked.
need a few weeks of Kirk Cousins getting acclimated, and we're going to need to see it before I think we want to be starting him. Bijan got the lion's share of the workload, finally, right? That's what we've
That's
been
all
waiting
we
for.
wanted. That's
Yep.
all we wanted.
It was, 98% of the total running back touches. Like, it was great.
It was fantastic.
For Pitts and London, not nearly as great. They both respectively had 11.5% target share on the week. So that's not great. That's why I'm saying, I would prefer to sit both of them. Just because until we see it, it's hard to get excited. We just need Kirk Cousins to get more comfortable, healthier, knock off the rust, and I think he will eventually, but I don't know when that's going to be. So on the Eagles side of things, we saw them all have great weeks last week. So you were starting Hurts, Bark, A.J. Brown, and Devontae Smith every single week. Must starts, and Dallas Goedert is borderline must start territory, but he's typically going to be the odd man out. Basically.
Yeah,
So,
unfortunately.
especially in a game like this where the Falcons could easily not be competitive, and
Falcons give up the 5th most to tight ends since last year. So there's that too.
we shall see. All right, that was the last game of the week. Look at that.
Wow.
Made it through.
We made it through. We didn't miss any.
We didn't miss any. I know last week we missed the Chargers and Raiders. Not too bad, though, because there wasn't much that happened in that game other than Dobbins, but you weren't starting Dobbins anyway. So
Yeah.
that's going to do it on the matchups for the week. Those are who we'd be starting and sitting as we head into week 2. It's exciting times. We've got a Thursday night game tomorrow. You should see this video Wednesday. Should give you plenty of time to make start sits
Absolutely.
decisions. If you have any questions on the aforementioned start sit decisions, let us know in the comments. We'd be happy to answer them. Other than that,
We've reached the end, huh?
we have.
So, as always, like, subscribe for the Tank Sinatra. This is Eddie Bravo, Fantasy Football Warriors, signing out. Week 2. Bring it on.
We'll see you next time.